Welcome back to the channel. All right, it's time for the update to the Battlegrounds tier list. Remember, this is a general tier list. This is for you who are interested in Battlegrounds. And hey, you know what? Kabam already put out the post. I am very intrigued by it. I'll link my video on that, like my own personal boycott on spending and things like that. That was a great first step. You know I do love Battlegrounds. I would love to see the mode get exciting again and have me jump right back in and play it. And so I'm still using this tier list that myself and the Illuminati put together to do my rank ups, because that way, whatever the meta they throw at us each month is, I maybe have to do 1 or 2 rank ups, or maybe I've already got the champions ranked up. It's impossible to out of nowhere just create a full deck. So that's how we consistently do this. As always, we will go over the new champions, and we will obviously go over all the meta shifts. And there's a lot again this month. Kabam, keeping us on our toes. And then always rank up the champions that you enjoy, right? Because you're going to know how to play them. And remember, this is specifically oriented to Battlegrounds. Every single month, we're going to be on, I think, our 52nd edition. Maybe it's our 51st. That'll be coming out in about a month. That's the general tier list, the whole thing, and keep your eye out for that. Now, for those of you who are used to this tier list, you're like, hey, you're starting with defenders. And you know what? I got a great comment from someone, and they're like, hey, listen, I know this might be a bit of a moonshot, but I think one of the things that happens is you always say defenders are incredibly important, and then attackers are really important, and then dual threats are really important. They're all equally important to building a deck, because Battlegrounds is about building your deck, then your drafts and your bans and those sorts of things. But you always go over defenders last. And as a result, I think as a viewer, it can sometimes get a little confusing for you to say they're as important, but you always do them last. You spend the least amount of time with them. And I was like, dude, I didn't think this could have been improved upon, but I think you've absolutely hit the bullseye on this one. Like, this is a complete non-miss. I love it. And so I'm going forward with this, and I think this is how we're going to do it from now on, because we do spend a little bit less time on defenders because there's just a little bit less to talk about, but they are vitally important if you want to be successful in Battlegrounds. So we're going to start off with the defenders here. You can see we have them broken down between Tier Above All and Scorching. And the hot pink, that's to make sure I don't miss anyone. A lot of you have asked me to click on who I'm talking about, so I'm going to do my best to keep that going. I'm sorry if I mess that up. It's a new habit for me to try to build here. But the first one we're talking about is demotion. That's why we're talking about it. It is Mephisto. This is one of the things we talk about, like the 6-star tax. Not available as a 7-star. I do think if he comes out as a 7-star, even with Science Champions being as strong as they are these days, I think he's unique enough. The game's gotten big enough, and we still currently can only put 30 champions in our deck, that I do think he will be valuable. I don't see him shooting up to like a 9 or something like that, but I do think an 8. And I actually am currently, it was cool that I saw this now. So you are live seeing a change. Look at this. This is incredible. I'm sure you're all so excited to see me live do it. You're like, that was amazing. Obviously, I'm making fun of myself there. Enchantress does need to be a 10 out of 10. You have to know how to fight her. I still think that in general, I like Photon best for her, but if I need to go fast, it's obviously Silk. You just got to hope you don't miss. So that's the thoughts on Mephisto there. Now we will move on. And this is what I was talking about, like big shifts in the general meta, okay? And it's basically about the death being a bit dramatic, but of the skill class defenders, right? We got Onslaught, and then we got Dust, and Dust is fantastic. A lot of us think of her more as a defender. Like you can see, we have her as a defender with the offensive use emoji. In fact, if I can get a video out before my trip coming up, one of them will definitely be on Dust. I love playing her. She's so good. And then we also got Negasonic Teenage Warrior. We've got all kinds of champions like Dazzler. Sorry, my thought is escaping me a little bit right now. But then we've also got champions like Medusa and Bastion coming in and starting to handle some of them. Now, Bullseye's tough enough to fight. The animations are tough enough to fight. Very well designed defender with a lot of tricks up his sleeve, where he's still surviving. He's not quite as hit by these more classic skilled defenders. Atuma, right? Jean Grey like makes this joke out of Atuma, and it's good. Atuma's tough to fight. Like, this is the evolution of the game, but we do need to reflect this. We do need to reflect this. I think if Nick Fury came out as a 7-star, he would go back up. It's just that second life that we always talked about. It's just not lasting as long. 7 stars can sometimes even get him down to his second life before they've had to really do their cash out moment, meaning that second life doesn't last that long. And then Killmonger, we just went over the damage back mechanics. Korg as well too. So many energy damage champions can handle Korg now. Killmonger. Like I said, we've even got Medusa who can armor break him, really remove a lot of those threats. And then Korg at least still has a massive health pool. Killmonger's got the crit resistance. So they're not useless. Like if you look at this, they're still rated as 7s. I'm not telling you, hey, don't include them in your deck. What I'm saying is make sure they make sense for your deck moving forward. And right now, if you're like, hey, I want to rank up a defender, I would not go with them. You know, I would obviously, as you can see by the scores there, maybe Dust, Bullseye, Arcade, is an excellent defender, causing a lot of problems. Serpent, Maestro, you obviously get it. You can see that. Now let's go ahead and talk about the attackers. Now let's go ahead and talk about the attacker changes. Now these are going to be the Scorching and the Super Hot tiers, right? Keeping with the general tier list. So these are 2 lower tiers. Remember, even a 6 is like good, especially depending on the meta or how well you design your deck and your drafts around them. They can often do great things. That's why so often it's like, hey, no, I do cool things with, let's say, Hawkeye, right? It's just they're not going to be as widely versatile, or maybe just not quite as potent, even in straight up matchups, as your champions that are higher rated. You got to do your best with what you have in this game, right? So let's go ahead and look at this. We'll do the Scorching tiers and Super Hot together. We're in the Mystic class. First one we're talking about is Spiral. Now, you know I came in very strong on Spiral when she first came into the game. Really nothing has changed my thoughts on what's going to happen. It's that she's very good. Her flow is phenomenal. She's a little tough to play, right? A lot of people find like I have to play her almost like a mixed master mode. If you get that down, you're going to get tremendous results, okay? And then her signature ability, I think, is more about her general use outside of Battlegrounds. Let's see if there is ever a hazard shift meta or something like that. So I don't really think you necessarily need that. Obviously, a phenomenal Serpent counter. And I think as your skill with her goes up, for you, she might be someone who could be like a 9 or something like that. She's a good example of what we're talking about. Mystic class is very, very powerful. Moving on, then you get to Purgatory. We're obviously seeing her do phenomenal things in War. We saw her absolutely destroy Nightmare raids. We've seen her do great in questing. You know, I'm a big fan as well. The interesting thing is seeing highly ranked. We're talking like rank 3s, right, at the highest level of Battlegrounds, doing really good things in general. We're talking about the energy attacks, as we referenced with Korg earlier. Her Neutralize can turn off Serpent. It's not guaranteed. That's a Serpent sort of thing, right? One of his barriers. And then the damage can get going very, very good. So she's got a lot going for her. In your like pure nuke meta, she's obviously not going to shine as much. That's why she's about an 8. I feel really good about 8. I think that's going to be about it for her. We'll give it probably another month or 2, and then we'll remove the dice emoji. And then the last one, and I hate doing this. I really hate having to demote champions, but we do need to reflect this. This is for a couple reasons here with Isophine. One, she's turning out to be a little bit slower in general than I thought she was going to be. There is a nice rotation off of the SB2, but that does take time, okay? And then the other thing is that her immunities obviously aren't in general helping her in Battlegrounds, kind of like we just talked about with Spiral. So that's why you'll see on the general tier list, she's going to be more highly ranked, but this is Battlegrounds. And so like that's kind of where she's at. The other thing that has happened, and this is the meta scores, is there are more counters to Serpent. Serpent is still obviously a massive problem. This is not what's happening with like Korg and Killmonger, like I showed you in Atuma earlier. But there's a lot of mystics that can handle Serpent for you, that can also handle a lot of other champions as well. And Isophine's just not fitting that bill. She's fine. She's good. I still see her in decks at times. Remember, I'm playing like that Quantum Mysterium level myself. So she's a good solid 6. I think that's where we're going to keep her for a while. We'll see how this evolves. You can see as far as these tiers are concerned, no changes in science, no changes in skill, no changes in mutant. Our changes reside in tech and then in cosmic. We're seeing our first new champion this month. Obviously, I'll be going over him in more detail in the general tier list, but as far as Battlegrounds is concerned, he's very, very good for Onslaught and a lot of your like newer mutants, right? I did the new champion video on Bastion. One of the things I just need to point out, I need everyone to be aware. I feel like that's one of the things I want to do with my channels. Make sure you all know what I think, make you aware of stuff. He's not great for your older classic mutants, okay? He can take Domino. I'm not trying to be funny here. There's a little bit of luck and gambling involved in that. The thing is with Domino, Bastion can get the luck, or at least the percentages, on his side, and then he can end the fight very quickly because he'll get that, I can't think of what his vulnerability is, but the vulnerability that he does, right? It's not degen, but you guys get the point. This isn't a Bastion video. So him being able to do that and then also take Bullseye really well gives him tremendous value already. So he's like good in for a lot of the defenders that are tough in his class, like Dust, I think as well too. And then obviously Mr. Sinister we've shown. But then he can go outside of it and take one of the most dominant defenders in the game right now, which is Bullseye. That's enough. Not much of a dual threat, not a lot of big defensive use. I know some of you are like, no, I play some on defense. He does. I really feel strongly most of that right now is due to him being new. People don't know his animations and things like that. I don't think that'll be the case in 3 or 4 months. If that's still happening, we will reflect that and we'll either give him the defensive use emoji or we will put him into the dual threat. I do believe this strongly that he's going to end up at least an 8, possibly a 9. I would not be shocked by that. But as you know, we start off conservatively around here with our rankings. We'd much rather tell you a champion it ended up being better than we thought they were than they were worse than we thought they were, right? Demotions we usually want because of meta, time went on, that sort of thing. Then moving on is Ironheart, right? She had a big bug fix, really just kind of an amazing one where her vulnerabilities were actually making her damage lower. You can see how that'd be an easy mistake to make, but then over time in the game, I think players like Simula, right, incredibly smart player, were like, something's not right here. And so I'm comfortable with the 7. This feels very similar to Bastion, what I just said about Bastion, where this is almost like a new champion now, and that I want to be conservative on this because I do think there's a path forward for her to be an 8. If the speed is even just a little bit faster, remember, she has incredible utility. Her damage could get very good. It's just how long did it take to get there? If that vulnerability switch, and you think about it, it went from making her damage worse to now actually making her damage better. It's not like it went like, oh, the vulnerability is making her damage worse. Let's set it back to a neutral. No. The vulnerability was always supposed to make the damage better. So let's see how that plays out. Would not be surprised if next month or the following, you see her up here with an 8 and we're talking about her again. Really a great champion. Really a great champion. And then the other 2 we're going to talk about very quickly in the Scorching tier here. I stopped hitting the thing. I'm sorry, y'all. I am trying. Is Odin, right? His True Strike. He's relatively simple to play. The SP2 can do solid damage. He's got a lot of buffs. So those things, I think he's got the Energize as well. So getting to the SP2 can really help you out with speed. And then, like I said, like his True Strike, trying to evade and stuff like that. I think a 7's about right, though. I don't see him going up to an 8 or a 9 or anything like that. And then Angela, and this has been pointed out by a lot of people. A lot of the Illuminati, Old Man Easy, has been pointing this out for quite a while. Look, Angela and her ability to parry the non-contact attacks with a new defender like Zola, who is obviously difficult, this gives her value. Okay, this gives her value. I'm not currently recommending you rank up Angela for Battlegrounds, but what I will say is if you enjoy playing her in questing, she's obviously very good for these sorts of things, or war, you might want to consider as an additional thing, either putting it in her deck or be like, hey, maybe if I'm choosing between her and, I don't know, someone else on this tier list, and she does what will help you out, you might want to consider ranking her. I do think she's a solid 7 for Battlegrounds attack. We'll now go over the tier above all, right? So these are just your best attackers, right? We always give the scores and designate them in their attacker, defender, dual threat based on where will they score the highest. And we do give a slight bump for being a dual threat because it is a nice advantage when you draft them early. You're not locked in. If your opponent gets a counter, whether it's offense or defense, you don't now basically have like a wasted pick or have to make a strategic throw in a round. You can put them on the other side. So just kind of giving some insight into that for new viewers. The first one I'm talking about is Shothra, right? I've been talking about Shothra for a very long time. Did the new champion video, really liked her. It's a lot of it is her damage source. No one's immune to it. A lot of passives, so they can't be shrugged. Then she has a really big power steal, so she's able to cycle through her specials more quickly. And then the atrophy. I just did a video on her. I highly recommend you check it out. Phenomenal in Battlegrounds. And then as you play her more, you're going to get the spacing down. She can become great for Serpent and these sort of things. There's a lot of reasons why you're seeing high tier players take her up. Her Sig's not really that great, but she's a prestige monster as well. So that's what that's about. That's what I was playing in. I really like Sasha in a very strong attacker class. She has tremendous versatility, and that kind of pushes her up a little bit. Deadpool X-Force. We did this on the last tier list. We're like, we honestly don't know what to do with him right now. I'm not asking for him to be nerfed. I don't ask for nerfs. I live strongly in the no nerf zone. I want to have fun, but I do respect that Kabam does. They hold that back. They hold the ability to nerf it, and I think in general they do a really good job with that. I know it's frustrating, it's disappointing, it's upsetting. I don't like them either as a player, and I'm not calling for him to be nerfed. I want to be abundantly clear with this, but we put him in the 9 because that's what he's doing. He has very little utility, but his blunt force power of no one being immune to what he does. And he's taking out like tech champions. It's going against the class wheel. You do have to play him really well. He's going to look absurd in this current meta for mutants, right? So like Kabam, if you don't look at just this meta when you're analyzing him, please. I know you know that. I currently would much rather have Dazzler because I think she's a significantly more well-rounded champion. Deadpool is not obviously supposed to be one. So we're giving him a 9, but I'm spending as much time on this because I really want to call this out in a channel where one of my favorite things to do is have this conversation with you, give out my advice, my opinion on my experience and all the Illuminatis. This is one of the biggest ones we've ever had to say, like, we're not totally sure what to do here. Enjoy this while it's going on, and if after his rebalance period it's left completely alone, then great. But just be careful. That's it. That's not based on any inside knowledge. Just keep that in your back pocket. All right, let's go ahead and move up. All right, another new entrance into this, right, is because he's now in the 7-star Titan pool. I think you're going to want to awaken. I think you're going to want to high sig for this. He has a very small health pool, so this is a bit of a glass cannon. However, does have some defensive threat too. It's been a long time since like the 6 stars were supreme in Battlegrounds. People need to remember you had to learn how to fight him, and you really did often want buff immunes. Now, Science has a lot of that. So there's a little bit of that. So we're not jumping them all the way up to 9 or 10 or things like that. I do think this might be a bit of Spidey Supreme ceiling. But if you're like, wait, what? Go look at BMcG's channel. A lot of what he was doing with the 6-star. This is a very powerful champion. Does have the speed for Battlegrounds in the right matchups. Does have the defensive prowess, the threat for the right matchups in Battlegrounds. A good general champion too. So make sure you do your studies on this, and then you're going to want to learn how to fight him, right? And you're often going to want a buff immune if you want to do it really, really fast. So keep your eye on Spidey Supreme. I do have the microphone there with America Chavez. It looks like I have a couple of the champions in this, so we'll talk about them as well. So we're on to America Chavez. I am calling this out, and you know me, I love America Chavez. She's one of my favorite characters, one of my favorite champions to play. The Mystic class had tremendous growth last year. It does not mean America Chavez is a worse champion. What it does mean is that there's other champions that can handle some of the fights she was doing. I still think she's worthy of a 10, but I need to call out that we actually had discussions about moving her down to a 9. For the most part, most people said it wouldn't bother them to do that. They don't think it's necessarily quite time. But when I brought it up, quite a few people said like they had thoughts on this too. She's still great for champions with a lot of buffs. The Cosmic class has been evolving. She's still one of my favorite counters for Serpent. So again, even if she's demoted, this is down to a 9. So still one of the best Battleground champions in the game. With the Science class getting stronger and stronger, there means so many Science champions in most decks. Her defensive threat is lower too, but of course you can still catch your opponent without options. I will show you a video from Prowler. He's one of my favorite options for her. So this is one of those ones where champions coming from outside the class wheel, coming in to handle them, kind of like we talked about with Bastion a little bit, that could start to hurt a champion's threat, either whether it's offensive or defensive. So she's a bit of an example for this. So just keep your eye on it. She's still phenomenal. In my opinion, still currently one of the best Mystic champions in the game. But it's something that I do want to call out is because we are aware of it. And I want to get these things going forward, even though we do this every single month. So there we go. As we move on through, you can see Black Panther Civil War. He just continues to prove his worth. There's a good defender, hits into your block, has some block penetration, if I recall correctly. I know that I feel like he must. And then, of course, when you've got him to a high enough sig, like he's going outside his class wheel, taking like Mr. Sinisters and things like that. You got to play him well. It's a bit of a tricky play style, but if you're high skilled and you get it down, you're going to do well. You do want the sig very, very high on him because you want to start with his charges. And by the time you throw that special 2, you want it either to kill itself or you want the bleeds off of it to finish the job for you. And a lot of the charges you start the fight with are going to be a big play, basically, in how you can get that done. Moving on, Domino. Similar discussion to what we just had with America Chavez is that I'm calling out, you want to have your eye on her. We've got our eye on her. I, again, brought this up. A lot of players were like, Yeah, there's a lot of domino counters in decks now that can also do other things. And that starts to minimize the threat of a champion, okay? Offensively, people aren't using her as much anymore. Remember, we've talked about all these various mutant champions. Are about to get to two more who are showing offensive prowess. So you're not wanting to use her as frequently. Also, those champions are better countering the skill class that we would sometimes use her like, hey, backpot, all right, domino for Atuma, here we go. Well, now you're going up against a Jean Grey or a Dazzler or something like that who's going to beat your domino. So she's still good. In fact, the player in the Illuminati that in the last few seasons, I believe, we'll see, because we've got some incredibly high, like we've got like a lot of Celestial players in there, but he's a consistent high Celestial player. Was like, no, Domino's still a 10 out of 10 for me. I don't have the champions that can counter her very well, like in his roster, so he can't even rank them up. So, but I did want to just call it out that our eye is on it for people who are considering ranking up a mutant defender, that sort of thing. The next new champion we'll talk about that's new this month is Jean Grey. Again, I'll go into more detail on her and her general use, questing, that sort of thing in the general tier list, which will be coming out. Battlegrounds, she's does have defensive threat. I don't care what anyone tells me. If there is a defender that has a chance to put reverse controls on me, that's a defensive threat. I don't know if I will ever get comfortable with the like chance for reverse controls or reverse controls, not reverse controls, transition in a fight. Okay, so that's a defensive threat. Additionally, she's just going to destroy Atuma. She's going to be good for a lot of other matchups too, but she's definitely going to destroy Atuma because of the way he functions and the way she functions. I showed that in depth on my video, my champion video on her. But then she's going to be great in questing too, a miss counter as well. So if there's that threat that exists, she's a great champion. I think a solid 8, potentially could go up to a 9, but I think this is about right for her. And we'll obviously monitor that as time goes on. And then gentle. Nagase has just been shown as gentle, right? And you always have to account for the high skill of the summoner when it's someone like Nagase, but gentle's still handling business. Obviously good for Bullseye. Gentle will do even better in a meta where recoil is friendly to the scoring system and things like that. So if that ever returns, you'll see that. You don't need to run recoil with him for him to do well. I'm still not a massive Gentle fan, but I recognize the power and I see what Nagase and others are showing. And we have to say, like, obviously that's powerful. Also, Gentle has defensive threat. In a few months, I would not be surprised at all if we move to Gentle to like a 9 in dual threat because we see his defensive threat has moved up, or even moving him to a defender with an offensive use emoji in certain scenarios. So you can keep your eye on that one as well. I totally forgot to keep clicking. I apologize. I'm trying to say their names. Future Ant-Man, this is just the 6-star tax, right? Punching up against the 7 stars. If you're not looking to like hit Quantum or Mysterium or something like that, I think he's still a great rank up. He's a great champion, a great questing champion. So have fun if that's your, like, don't let this hold you back from ranking up your 6-star if he's going to help you in questing things, because he still is in like Quantum and Mysterium decks from time to time. He can make it into Celestial as well. Again, just for kind of reflecting, though, the power level on these things. Sentinel, this is a promotion. Obviously a good defender. Can be good offensively, too. I'm not a huge fan of playing Sentinel, but I have to reflect what's obviously out there if we're putting out this advice, of course. And then the last champion we will talk about today is a promotion all the way up to 10. I told you from the very beginning, and I very rarely make these proclamations, but when I do, I'm right. I know that sounded very self-serving, but it's true. I said it's like he's the new best Cosmic in the game. He just is. I had got to test him, I got to play him, and it didn't take me long to be like he's at least in that conversation. And then through some more testing, I was like, he's just that great in questing, all that. This is in Battlegrounds. Obviously a stalled defender. Even if someone knows how to fight him, he can still stall. Okay. And then offensively, I'm taking out Red Skulls. One that's not Domino. He's one of my best in case of. No, it's not even like an emergency option. He's just one of my like, hey, I didn't get a tech champion, or I want to use this tech champion elsewhere. I think Thanos can do this. Yeah, he can. Cool. Got a great score. Domino's dead. And so having a champion like that with that much versatility to be able to be defensive or offensive. I actually think that at the moment he might be unparalleled as far as maybe Onslaught, potentially Spider-Ham. I can't even say Photon, because Photon in general, as much as I love her, she's not as fast as Thanos, even her like ideal matchups. And with the way the game is right now, I feel like he's just as much, if not more, of a defensive threat in Battlegrounds than she is. She's more likely to kill me because I make a mistake. Yeah, he's amazing, y'all. As usual, though, this was a big update. Let me know what we think you got right. Let me know what we think you got wrong. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.